a lot of companies, you're a drug company, you're a small molecule company, or you're even a biologics company. But now you have to be a small molecule company and a biologics company, or you have to be a drug company and a biologics company, or now you need to be a biologics company and a device company. And there's a lot of challenges with that. We put on this slide, there's things like you're going to have more partnerships, you're going to have more suppliers. James mentioned, anytime you're working with these ADCs, you're going to be leveraging partnerships. You're going to have suppliers, you're going to have new suppliers, new partnerships, and they're going to have new ways of working because they're used to operating under their models of their development processes. We talked about how the drug and the device development pathways are different. Well, biologic development and drug development is different. So your partners are going to be speaking a different language. Your suppliers are going to be speaking a different language, and you need to be ready to interface with them. Your management oversight responsibilities may be different under different quality system regulations and responsibilities. You're going to have different container closure system considerations. A lot of these next-gen systems, they are more fragile. They do have different considerations when you start looking at container closure. Whether you're going to put them in a vial, whether you're going to put them potentially in a pre-filled syringe, you got to think, how are you going to get them to the target location? Are you going to be infusing them? Are you going to be injecting them? Are you going to be putting them in a patch? How are you actually going to be getting them to the patient? And how are these going to be interacting with that container closure or with that delivery system? They have stability issues. They have photosensitivity issues. They have challenges that are unique due to their combinatory nature that are different from these small molecules or even kind of traditional biologic challenges that we've been facing for the last several decades. So you got to consider those, and some of the technologies of these container closures haven't necessarily caught up from that technology space to address some of these challenges with some of these more fragile therapies. And then from the regulatory section, the regulations honestly haven't necessarily caught up with some of these next-gen therapies either. A lot of times you're going to be kind of trailblazing as far as when it comes to what's the right scientific data, what's the right clinical data, what's the right technical data to put in front of regulatory agencies to ensure they're safe and effective to deliver to patients. There's some guidance out there, but in a lot of cases, organizations will be trailblazing. You're going to need to work with regulators. You're going to need to be proactive and helping define that pathway. And I think that can be an uncomfortable situation for a lot of organizations to be the one who's putting that out there, setting that bar. But from someone who used to work at the FDA and worked with a lot of novel products, that's what it takes. It takes a partnership between the health authorities and these companies to understand what is needed and to think creatively together, offer data, engage in the conversations so that you can be ready. And it takes a lot of planning. There's cultural differences between the two. So it's really important that as an organization, if you're going to go into that space, you really understand kind of all the different facets and all the different departments in your organization and what that's going to take for each one of those in order to be successful to move into this space. Because it's not just simply becoming, developing an ADC or developing a combination product. It's going to touch every single department within your organization, and you kind of need to be prepared for that change management.